we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom? Here. Here too. Ms. Laird? Here. Here.
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting from August 28th, 2023, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lewis. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu?
Yes.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved. Moving on to legislative report.
Nothing specific this evening. I think I will have one coming up though. There's going to be an election, in November, and I don't know that anything local is pertinent to schools directly, but there are some things maybe at the state level you might want to know.
Okay, sounds good. No walk-on items tonight?
No, sir.
All right. Members of the community, if they'd like to speak to the board, I think we're clear on that one. So moving on to superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Price. We've had a good start to school, and I'm hearing that from all over. Everybody feels like things are started smoothly and things are rolling really well. Thanks for your flexibility in our meeting space. There's 2 volleyball games tonight, one at the middle school and one here. I do encourage you, if you wink, stick your head in maybe after our meeting. The varsity from Tiffin is here, and both teams only have 1 loss, so very competitive. So it should be a good game tonight. Just so you know, today is 9/11, obviously, and we spent a lot of time in the district going over it's Constitution Day, right, Denise, and also Patriot Day. So is that okay? Coming up. Anyway, this is the season for some of that. So we're making sure that we're making sure our students are aware of what happened and that we never forget. Also coming up next week is something that we do by state law, but it's something we've really come to enjoy, and that's the Sandy Hook Promise. You may be familiar, but it's basically the state's effort to make sure that we are making sure kids are noticed in school and that no one's alone and no one's maybe in a bad place and maybe thinking of even harming themselves, harming someone else. It's sort of that what we do well. We talked about having our SROs at school to protect us and make sure we're safe from that kind of thing. But our job as educators is to know our students and make sure they're safe and in a good place. So the Sandy Hook Promise has sort of 2 focuses that we're going to take part. One of them is Start with Hello, which is a program to make sure that students are engaging with maybe someone outside of their comfort zone. So a little bit of that stretch into maybe some friend groups that they're not real familiar with. And also a Say Something program. And that's the emphasis on if you see someone that's in trouble, or if you think something doesn't feel right, or you see something online that you don't think is good, say something. So those are some of the emphases of the Sandy Hook Promise that we'll be partaking in. And also for our next meeting, we will be getting our grade card publicly announced later this week. And then I'll have a full report for you at our next work session. Denise and I have talked a little bit even today again about how excited we are about the growth that we've seen. So we're very excited to present that to you and show you kind of where we are and where we're headed and the strong growth that we believe we are achieving as a district. So that's sort of my report for this evening. Do I have anything for me? Question?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When we think about the Sandy Hook Promise and that being
Yeah.
a state law, and with our role as policymakers, and its purpose is to assess where kids are, where they're at. I'm wondering if in policy we could take a look at some language to slide in there, our response on accusations, questions of bullying,
Sure.
that kind of thing. If that could be slid in there in our response, we look at things that are punitive immediately, and that's very important to
For
do.
sure.
But also
Nurturing
slide in
side.
something
Yeah.
that assesses that child's emotional well-being as part of this law.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. We had talked at one point, Ms. Laird, about bringing policy forward from departments, maybe this winter, and kind of starting to, okay, in each department, what are the policies that are most hot, so to speak, the ones that were really, in our face. That might be a good way to do that as we get into those policies, attach it to one of our directors and just bring it that way. Certainly appropriate. You bet. Thank you. With your permission, Mr. Price, we'll continue?
Yep.
All right. Donations this evening. Thank you very much to a very generous community. I'm never ceased to be amazed by the generosity of our community. You ask and they deliver. It's amazing. So tonight we have classroom supplies from anonymous donor, Dawn Broski and Faith Lutheran Church. Justin's for Migrant Women helped us with some hygiene supplies. St. Paul's School Supplies and Gara Sauer with socks and underwear. Just a little bit of socks and underwear. It's one of those things that it's just not glamorous, but it's what we need. And it's sometimes we have to ask for that specifically because sometimes it isn't on people's radar as something we need. So I appreciate that. So those are our donations for this evening's agenda.
Can I get a motion to approve item 1, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Laird. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Ms. Laird?
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu?
Abstain.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you. I think it's noteworthy to note Mrs. Spiritu is abstained due to her participation in that donation. Thank you, Mrs. Spiritu. Item 2, this is the big one for this evening. I mentioned it last meeting. This will help us continue our progress on the bleachers and construction of the concession stand, locker room, and restrooms on the visiting side. Just so you know, as we look at Mosier, Warner, and Vaughn, Warner and Vaughn's are primarily just that building. Mosier's is really split between the concrete work that's underneath the bleachers and the block work for building and obviously the structure of the building itself. So that's about a 600 to 400 split, 600 being for the building and 400 being for the concrete work on all the other area underneath the bleachers. I just want to make sure that was clear. So with your approval tonight, we can actually get them on the schedule. And that's one thing they've been asking is they're planning work, they're ready to roll, so they want to make sure that they can keep moving. So with your approval, we can get that going this evening.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve item 2, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lewis. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the bid process itself,
Yes.
how many participants did we receive proposals from?
We worked with TDA, and then they managed it through this construction management program the same way that we did our building project. So with that method, we can hire them, and then they go out and get
Okay, so they acted as a GMP.
exactly. Very much like we did our building project.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that's been really working. And it seems to be kind of even a process around the state that seems to be getting a lot of momentum, is that.
If I could just define that for the people
Please,
who might be watching.
absolutely,
So a guaranteed
absolutely.
maximum price means that the contractor gives you the most that it will be. If it happens to go over that for reasons outside of exchanges or things that the school requests, that additional cost then is on the contractor and not the public entity. So it's a way of protecting us from increased costs that might be unforeseen. That's why they get to pick the contractors and the subs, because they're on the hook for the cost, so they need to, know who they're going to get their best price from. Having said that, Mosier is local, Warner is local. Vaughn did a fabulous job for us. They're out of Findlay, so not that far. But I will say, Vaughn, with the construction project, they did break out some of the contracts in a little bit smaller portions so that local electricians could participate in part of that.
Sure.
I would just like to ask them to consider
Okay.
that as well. They're contractually not obligated to do that, but they extended that courtesy last time, and it would be really nice. This is a much smaller job than what they did on the build, but they could.
Sure, I will
that'd be
pass that
great. You
along,
could
certainly.
Just ask.
You bet.
So this would start probably next year?
Well, no, we want to hit this right after the season. So if we have a playoff game, for example, that next week, as soon as we know we're done at the stadium, we're going to start
taking
getting the old
okay.
bleachers out and get
and
after
then
it.
go as long as the weather
That's
allows.
exactly right. Then it'll be very much a weather dependent thing. Bleachers will be the last thing because those will be moved onto the concrete. But we really would like to get that concrete work done before snow flies.
Long time coming.
Yes, they're a mess.
That would be very nice.
Actually, I was at a foundation meeting, Fremont Area Foundation meeting. Mr. Bucci was there, and it was way before him. And he says he has no idea when those bleachers were put in. So we're thinking late 50s on those bleachers.
Really?
Yeah.
Be a nice addition to our stadium and our.
And it's going to look so much nicer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be nice too.
Yeah.
I worked in the
Yeah.
old one. It's kind of cold in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Just one more point. If you wanted to look up what I was talking about, it's called a CMAR, Construction Manager at Risk. So if you want to research.
Thank you. All right. Any other discussion on that? Okay. Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion's approved.
Thank you very much. Item 3 tonight is to welcome Emanuele Angeletti as a foreign exchange student from Italy into Ross High School. Your approval.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve item 3, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Spiritu. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Laird. Any discussion?
He is on the soccer team too, by the way. Apparently added a little bit to the roster. Yeah.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion's approved.
Thank you very much. Item 4 and 5 are similar. Our FFA kids, any trip that's either overnight or out of state needs board approval. These are trips that the kids have taken before. So with your approval, we'll allow them on item 4 to travel to Carrollton, Ohio for several overnights as part of their FFA experience.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve item 4, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Laird. Any discussion?
What exactly are the trips for?
Some of these are conventions. Some of them are judging. This one, I believe, is a leadership at Carrollton. I think the second, well, Indianapolis, I think, is the National FFA Convention.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion's approved.
Thank you very much. The next one, item 5, is not only overnight, but also out of state. And I may mention that both of them, sorry?
That one. Same
Oh.
one. My bad. I'm losing my
Ready
mind.
for item 5?
You're good.
Okay.
Lost my
Um,
mind.
Notice both of them say no cost to the district. That is true because it's a club, basically. This isn't we have ag classes in the building every day, but this is the FFA, which is beyond the school day. But we have currently a very active group of ag parents who have done a tremendous amount of fundraising to help make sure that kids don't have a barrier here for taking part of these trips and so forth. So I wanted to commend them. I was at the FFA banquet last spring, and they made over $1,000 raffling off a couple pies. I mean, these guys are really good at making money, but they've done a great job of.
They were probably good pies, too.
I'm sure delicious
I mean-
pies. Certainly. But anyway, that's so you understand. There's an effort behind this to make sure there's no barriers for kids to attend.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve item 5, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lewis. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion's approved.
Thank you very much. Now, item 6, very important for us to recognize our Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic heritage is a big part of Fremont, our large demographic represented in our students. So with your approval tonight, we'll, with vigor and gusto, celebrate that heritage.
Can I get a motion to approve item 6, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Spiritu. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion's approved.
Thank you very much. Now moving into our staff items. Item 7 is with a heavy heart as well. Teresa Wright is one of the most gifted music teachers I've ever been around, and I've been around a lot of them. So we will miss her terribly, but we wish her well in retirement. Item 8, a couple certified staffs, Peggy Dorr, Isaiah McDonald, and Daniela Ortiz. Some appointments of support staffs in item B. Moving on, item 9, supplemental contracts. You'll see that's a very long list. And these are all of our certified staff that are helping us with all kinds of clubs and activities. And I know that several of you have mentioned several times how much you appreciate staff members that step up to help kids. And there's your 2.5 pages worth of staff members. And every one of those represents deeper relationship with kids and really life-changing activities. So it's a lot and it costs us some money, but I think it's the nectar of what we do around here. So that goes on to page 8, where there's item 10. Supplemental duty positions there. These are our really non-certified staff helping with some of the similar types of extended contracts. Item 11, special event workers. We've got Drew Solander, hospitality for officials. And item 12, Ella Lozano as a lifeguard. Item 13, Sarah Root as a bus chaperone. We did a big list of those a couple meetings ago. We're just adding her to the list. Then item 14 are all of our staff status changes due to longevity and increased education. That's the end of our personnel items.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve items 7 through 14, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lewis. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Laird. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mrs. Speartoo,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to report of the treasurer.
Good evening. Not much going on out of the norm in our office. We're just kind of moving along with the beginning of the school year. Everything seems to be running good with all of our new systems that got implemented over the summer. We have a new copier company that came in, so working out on the kinks on that was fun. Also, we have new absence software, so those are they just went perfectly, and there were no issues. Let me tell you. So
Your nose is growing.
I know, right? But yeah, everybody was very patient with us as we just went through the normal issues that come up when you make those bigger changes with those bigger companies. Don't really have much else to report on tonight. I do want to give a shout out to the girls soccer team that's going and playing in Bowling Green. Go Kenzie Schwoko. She was texting me. She was on the bus when I came walking in, so
Very good.
told her I'd wish her good luck.
I see them sitting out there.
So nothing for approval or anything?
No action.
Nope.
Just one question for you. Has there been any update at all on the pipeline
No.
lack of agreement, I guess would be the...
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything in that area, oddly enough, in a while. And I would think we would be getting something soon. I'm trying to think the last we heard on that was maybe March or April, where
And
they
I don't-
filed an appeal to the state, I believe.
Right. Was there, but is it still working? Like it hasn't been, obviously it hasn't come before the court or anything like that for that
Mm-mm.
appeal
No action.
yet.
No
Yeah.
action on that.
I just thought about that. It hit my brain last week and I'm like, I wonder what,
Yeah.
but
Mm-mm.
nothing new.
Nothing asked.
Imagine
Yeah,
that.
nothing's fast. That's for
No.
sure.
Uh-uh.
Not out of Columbus. It's
No.
not.
No.
For sure.
Okay. Thank you.
It's unfortunate that it ended up being one district,
Yes.
Yeah.
one district out of the entire state districts involved
I know it.
that caused reconciliation for everybody.
Mhm.
Sure.
My personal opinion.
All right. Moving on to board member communications. Lori.
Well, thank you for all the donations from everybody, and very exciting about the bleachers and the concession stand. I didn't realize they were that old.
It's bad.
I remember seeing one with the Stom. they were always, I don't know, I just don't remember them being that old. They just always
They
were
started
there.
out with wood tops,
Yeah.
and we replaced them with aluminum maybe 30 years ago. So yeah, it's the frames are very old.
I just always remember seeing them.
Yeah.
Welcome to the foreign exchange student. I'm sure he'll add to the soccer team. The FFA, I like FFA. I never was in it, but my daughter did do a FFA and she loved it. And it's a lot of fun for the kids. And she didn't have any farm animals, but she had some animals which they qualified the dog, I guess. I don't know. They gave her some chickens to take care of. And thank you to all of our staff and all the volunteers that are willing to help out with all the kids and their extra classes and curricular activities and stuff.
Anything else?
I'd also like to thank the staff that stepped up to take up uh, uh, the supplemental contracts, extra duties that are available, and they're doing it to help, move the extracurricular activities on for the students. I'm glad everybody had a good start to the school. Mostly, I hope. Mine was a little challenging for the drop off, but after I received pictures, the rest of the day went well, and the second day has gone well, and she's happy to go to school now.
Good. Good. Mission
So,
accomplished. Yeah.
we cried for the drop off. I like to. We went to the parade and to see the school band. It was nice to see the school back into the parades and stuff like that. And I think the cheerleaders were there too. So yeah, that was nice to see.
Okay, Chantel?
Thank you, everyone, for the donations. Those are greatly appreciated. And again, for those taking on supplemental contracts, although you'll see some rates of pay with that, the fact is there's a lot of donated time on their behalf. So we appreciate you donating your time for our children. Also, appreciate Vaughn and Mosier and Warner Mechanical for again taking care of the school districts. Much appreciated. And if you take a look at that and the investment the community's made in these last few years, there is absolutely no doubt that Fremont loves its children. There's no doubt about that. And you're greatly appreciated for it.
Sarah?
Thank you to all of the FFA parents, like Mr. Detweiler noted, to take time to fundraise so that those children can participate in all of the endeavors that they wish to this year, including the two trips coming up. It's nice to see all of the alumni participate in the various alumni activities that are scheduled. I think at our last home game it was alumni cheer
Cheers.
night.
Yep.
I know we'll have alumni band night coming up here in the near future. So it's really neat to see all of the alumni that show up and participate, not just show up to the game. So that's pretty cool to see. Speaking of which, this Friday there's a skull session. It'll be right here in the pack. This is one of the many special skull sessions. I know the middle school kids get to, or the freshmen, or the eighth grade middle school kids get to participate in the skull session. The band children, and then just have that experience. Something to look forward to as freshmen next year. I know the middle school cheerleaders got to cheer for half of the varsity football game this Friday as well. So that will be exciting for them. And it's just a great way for all of us as a community to support the band, the cheerleaders, the majorettes, and everybody else that participates and helps to create a spirit-filled environment during the Friday night football games. I know there are tryouts that have been happening for the fall musical. So they are underway and will, I think, commence this week. So good luck to everybody trying out, and thank you to this is a neat collaboration because St. Joe is also participating in this musical. So this is a pretty cool collaboration for both of our local high schools, as well as the middle school was invited to participate. So another neat opportunity for kids to participate in. I took the opportunity during the first week of school to visit some of the elementary schools in the morning to greet the kiddos coming in. If you need a pick me up, do that. Just- We'll stand outside and check in with the office first, of course, but so I know who you are. But I talk about just kids happy to go in, the teachers and administrators, smiles on their faces, genuine smiles on their faces, happy to greet children. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience and something that I look forward, to doing and continuing to do. Just thank you to the community for all the support and good luck to all of the sports teams.
Mr. Price, if I may, real quickly, you reminded me of something about Friday night. The class of 55 is coming to Friday night's football game, will be introduced at the beginning of the game. I did the math. They're in the latter half of their 80s,
Yeah.
this crew. There are about 20 of them planning on being announced. They were the only class to go undefeated in their entire career of high school football, all 4 years.
Really?
So I've been working with them. We're actually sending a bus to one of their homes where they're all meeting. We're going to bus them to the stadium, then bus them back right out. They're not staying. He said, we're too old. We're not staying. So they'll get introduced, get back on the school bus, go back to one of the homes of the class of 55, and then they'll be done. But then they're doing a tour then on Saturday. So the class of 55.
Nice.
And
So-
it's just that you can't beat this little giant pride.
Isn't that
I mean,
something?
So many years later.
For sure.
Yeah.
So clearly they were physically fit then and they carried it
Apparently.
through.
Apparently. That's
So,
right. That's right.
that's
There's your
That's awesome.
testimony to fitness, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, congratulations to the class of 55. I mean, that's pretty cool. So, and to have them show up to the football game Friday night and be introduced and stuff, that's a fun thing. So well deserved for that. Thank you to the community for the donations. Of course, every month or every 2 weeks we see that. So it's never ending. And we thank the community for that. Good luck to the sports teams this fall. Sports season is in full bloom now for the fall. For the staff members that have stepped up and do the different clubs and different things, I learned very quickly when I married a teacher that I thought, teaching, it's Monday through Friday. That's a good gig. No evenings, no weekends. Yeah. So to add this onto their plate of being a teacher, that takes a lot of special time. So thank you to all those. So with that, no need for executive session tonight. So can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be Mrs. Laird.
Mr. Price.
Checking away here.
Make that a goal.
How many times do I have to tell you, Sarah?
Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion's approved. Meeting's adjourned.